Today, everyone, I'm Richard Nta in Nairobi. Let's begin with our top story, and we'll start with breaking news from Thailand, where at least 6 people have been killed and 23 others injured after a teenage gunman went on a rampage at his school on the northern outskirts of Bangkok. Authorities say 3 teachers, 3 students, and the shooter are among the dead. Police say the suspect stormed the school after allegedly killing his grandparents at their home. Charwat Yongji Ronan has more from the scene.
I'm standing here at the school itself. I just arrived. There is a lot of attention at the scene. There are mixed status or mixed numbers coming out. So let me just clarify everything for our viewers today. The incident occurred at 10 a.m. at Thai time, and the shooter was a grade 9 male student. He apparently had some sort of issues. He came into this school behind me in Nonthaburi, which is in the northern part of Bangkok, and he fired with an arm, a gun, but we don't know exactly what type of gun right now. 15 people were injured, more than 15 people were injured, 2 in critical situation. 7 people have been claimed already to be dead. Out of that 7 people dead, 3 people are teachers, 4 are students, and one of the students is the shooter himself. He had apparently allegedly shot himself. The student of the school have already been relocated and evacuated, and all of this information. There's a sense amongst the public that there needs to be stricter control on gun control, and also possibly more attention towards the mental health of the young people.
Reports by Saudi media say Iran and Oman have reached an understanding on the outlines of an agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for 60 days. Nick Harper has more from Washington, D.C.
Essentially, this would hand over control to the Strait to Iran and Oman, something that the U.S. specifically throughout all of this has been saying it does not want to happen. It wants the waterway to be free and open without any controlling power overseeing which ships get through, because in theory this new mechanism would really come down to the Iranians deciding ship by ship which ones they want to let through and potentially how much they charge them. There is some discussion of them charging a 5 to 7% of the total cargo rate on any ship that wants to go through, and we know the US is very much against the idea of any potential toll. No word yet from US officials, but Donald Trump throughout all of this has been suggesting that the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz is vital to what happens next, the next part of the discussions, moving on to denuclearization. He wants to get the strait reopened first, but what Iran is suggesting is certainly not what Donald Trump had in mind, and potentially this might be the first step to reopening it, but it would also give the Iranians incredible control over the strait. But they say that really this conflict has fundamentally changed the rules of the road, and that's why they're trying to get this agreement in place, something that the US is standing in opposition to.
Meanwhile, 2 explosions have been reported in Iran's Qashem Island as Iranian armed forces confronted hostile targets near the Strait of Hormuz. Ehsan Kiavani reports from Yazd in Iran.
Iran and Oman are apparently very close to finalizing a proposal for a new commercial shipping corridor through the Strait of Hormuz. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai confirmed on Wednesday that talks have been ongoing for 2 months over a safe passage mechanism. He said they've already agreed on the coordinates, and according to Iran, without third-party interference, they are now in the final stages of drafting a joint statement. An announcement is expected within days, but according to Foreign Ministry spokesperson, This does not mean the strait is fully secure. Restrictions remain due to what Tehran calls U.S. and Israeli military activity. Some vessels are also being hit. So this is more of a managed 60-day pilot, in fact, to break the deadlock and allow technical talks to proceed. Incoming ships would hog Iran's coast, while outgoing ships would stay closer to Oman's side, in fact. But for Tehran, the real priority isn't the money. It's control over who enters the Persian Gulf, because through this corridor, Iran would ensure that only commercial vessels and tankers are allowed in. Warships would be kept out unless explicitly permitted. Iran would also reserve the right to optionally block any commercial ships or tankers it designates as belonging to an enemy state. That is the strategic leverage that matters most here. This deal seems to be both a tactical fix and a bargaining chip in the broader picture.
Japan has released its latest defense white paper, which describes China as its greatest strategic challenge and outlines new priorities for Japan's military development. Analysts say the document reflects Japan's broader security policy adjustment and offers a glimpse into the direction of its future military buildup. Huang Yue reports.
Japan's latest defense white paper comes as the government moves toward revising its key security documents, including the national security strategy and defense-related policies. The document continues to use the same security narrative outlined in Japan's 2022 national security strategy, which identified China as its biggest strategic challenge.
这种定位实际上是
This kind of positioning is essentially Japan shifting the blame while using the so-called China threat as a justification for its own military expansion. As Japan prepares to revise its 3 key security documents in 2026, it's clear that it will further increase defense spending and strengthen its military capabilities.
The expert says a key change in this year's white paper is that Japan has provided more details on the deployment and development of offensive weapons, while dedicating a new section to the military application of AI and unmanned systems.
The signal Japan is sending is that its offensive weapons will achieve operational capability in a relatively concentrated period over the next 2 to 3 years. The scale of these capabilities is considerable, and Japan is demonstrating that it has the ability to use such weapons. These moves are also laying the groundwork for the revision of its security documents later this year.
China says it has lodged solemn representations with Japan over the latest defense white paper. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says Japan has hyped up the so-called China threat, interfered in China's internal affairs by making comments on China's Taiwan region, and used the regional tensions as a pretext for its military expansion. The expert says the latest moves are not only about Japan's own defense policy, but also closely tied to its alliance with the United States.
The United States has been encouraging its allies to take on a larger role in regional affairs. Japan's moves are aligned with this strategy and could, to some extent, reinforce the United States' willingness to remain involved in the region.
Japan has also adopted cartoon-style illustrations and multimedia content to make its defense policy more accessible to the public. Analysts believe the change in presentation itself is part of the story. They say it reflects Japan's efforts to bring its evolving defense agenda into the public mainstream. Huang Yue, CGTN, Beijing.
Relentless heat and lack of rainfall are pushing some of Europe's most important rivers to record low levels, with the drought now visible from space. Satellite images show shrinking waterways winding through parched landscapes, exposing riverbanks and sandbars usually hidden beneath the surface. Many of the rivers are vital for transport, power generation, tourism, and wildlife. But as water levels fall, Communities, economies, and ecosystems are paying the price. Europe's second longest river, the Danube, has dropped to historic lows in Hungary. Pablo Gutierrez reports.
Samuel Komori has spent his life on the Danube. Today, the captain of the Thetis guides us past Hungary's parliament along a river he knows better than most. But this summer, he says, he is navigating in unfamiliar waters.
In this year, there was very few rain, and not only in Hungary it was not raining because it doesn't matter, but in Austria, Germany, the Czech Republic, so all the places from where the Danube collects the water and brings here.
The Danube stretches nearly 2,900 kilometers from Germany's Black Forest to the Black Sea. Months of drought have left large sections too shallow for many vessels. Near Gellerhill in Budapest, Samuel points to a landmark that locals have feared for centuries, the Hunger Rock. It rises only when the river falls to extreme levels.
So when the rock comes out from the water, then the hunger comes, because then it's very little water in the Danube and also very little water on the fields.
The warning reaches far beyond Budapest. International cruise ships that normally sail through the Danube now sit tight to the docks. Passengers finish parts of their journey by bus. 70 kilometers north of Budapest, in Esztergom, 2 international cruise ships remain docked. River cruises bring around 600,000 visitors to Budapest and Hungary each year. With bookings down, towns that rely on these type of tourists will suffer and could lose millions of dollars. Upstream in Moche, Slovakia, people now walk where ships once passed. Among them is Esther, visiting from Vienna.
We don't see the boats, the cruise ships here, so it's sad.
Commercial cargo vessels also wait for the river level to rise. And for those who work on the river, fewer boats mean fewer customers. Janos has operated a ferry and a floating restaurant for 26 years near Lupa Island in Hungary. He says the river has become difficult to navigate.
You need to be very cautious. The river is full of reefs. If you don't know exactly where to go, you will run aground and destroy your boat.
Back in Budapest, Samuel watches the depth meter. Near the Hungarian parliament, it reads just 0.7, when it should be more than 7 meters. Until the waters rise again, he can go no further. Pablo Gutierrez, CGTN, along the Danube River in Hungary.
Well, that is it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching. The Africa CDC says it will use Zaire Ebola vaccine for current outbreak. The UN envoy for South Sudan says questions remain for peaceful, credible, and inclusive elections. And the death toll from Ceuta border rush rises to at least 100. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. Coming up in business, oil prices rise amid further concerns around the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. And in sports, Hervé Renard returns as Côte d'Ivoire's head coach for a second stint. Once again, a very warm welcome to Africa Live. We begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the Ebola outbreak continues to grow. Driven by the rare Bundibugyo strain, which has no approved vaccine, confirmed cases have now surpassed 4,000 and more than 1,800 lives have been lost. In response, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is expanding the use of a vaccine developed for the previous Zaire strain. This is after early evidence suggests it may reduce severe illness, with clinical success showing no deaths among previously vaccinated individuals. The rollout of that vaccine, called Ervibo, is starting immediately in Ituri and North Kivu provinces, alongside expanded distributions of remdesivir as an antiviral treatment. Remdesivir was used by Ugandan authorities, who recently said they had cleared the country of Ebola. Health officials are also investigating whether changes in the virus could be accelerating its spread, while warning that medical tools alone will not halt the virus, stressing that community mobilization remains critical to containing the outbreak. And continuing our Ebola coverage, the World Health Organization says the outbreak is spreading faster than responders can contain it. As infections rise across 5 provinces, frontline health workers at the center of the outbreak are protesting over months of unpaid wages, warning that the crisis could worsen if their concerns are not addressed. CGTN's Caroline B. reports.
In Bunia, the capital of Ituri province, dozens of Ebola health workers have taken their frustrations to the streets. They say they have not received salaries and bonuses promised for risking their lives on the front lines.
Without nurses, doctors and hygienists, you cannot defeat Ebola. We put our lives and the lives of our families at risk every day. Because if I contract it, I'll go home and my wife, children and parents would also be infected.
Apart from payment issues, health workers and facilities have been attacked by rebels and angry villagers. Poor protection for frontline workers has also been a key source of concern.
We received half of a payment from MSF. We were promised that the ministry will pay the rest. But until now, we have not yet received the money, and we are here to reclaim it.
The demonstrations come as confirmed Ebola cases continue to climb. Health workers say if their grievances are not addressed, the entire containment response will be at risk.
We will continue working, but the authorities must find a solution. Otherwise, this epidemic will continue to spread in our country.
Congolese authorities did not immediately respond to an inquiry for comment, but officials have in the past blamed logistical issues for payment delays. Meanwhile, while visiting Kinshasa, WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the outbreak was spreading faster than international response, leaving medical teams playing a dangerous game of catch-up.
I'm deeply concerned by how the situation is on the ground. It has, of course, Ituri is the epicenter, but already, as you have seen in the report, 5 provinces have been affected.
But health experts warn the true scale is hidden. Up to 70% of new infections are emerging outside known contact lists, fueled by remote terrain, rebel conflict, and a severe breakdown of community trust. Despite the chaos, WHO insists the outbreak can still be stopped, only if a community ownership desperately needed to break the chain of transmission is built. Caroline B., CGTN.
Meanwhile, humanitarian agencies responding to the Ebola outbreak in the eastern DRC have suspended some operations after violent attacks on health workers and treatment facilities. Aid groups warn the insecurity is disrupting patient care, weakening community trust, and threatening efforts to contain one of the world's deadliest Ebola outbreaks. CGTN's Joy Karuki-Juma with that report.
The DRC's Ebola response has suffered another setback after an attack on Nyakunde Hospital forced patients and humanitarian workers to flee. The violence erupted after the death of an Ebola patient, prompting Mercy Corps to temporarily suspend its operations in the area while it assesses security conditions.
We hope to be just a temporary suspension until the situation calms down and we are able to fully return safely for our team and the community. A suspension like the one we've seen in Nyakunde, like about 10 days, is just going to slow down any efforts, any win that we had previously gotten, whether it is with wash interventions, but also building the trust of the community. I think what we are really trying to build, not only Mercy Corps, but all the partners involved in this response, is community trust about this response for us together to win over Ebola.
Health officials say the impact is already being felt. Medical supplies at the Nyakunde Treatment Center are running low, raising concerns about the ability to continue caring for patients.
We are calling on these partners to return to the area and continue supporting the Ebola response activities in the health zone.
Residents say the departure of humanitarian workers has also affected confidence in local health services.
We were receiving good care when they were here. Since their withdrawal, we no longer benefit from the quality of treatment and support they used to provide. I say this because in the past, people would go to the treatment center and receive a good welcome and proper care. But today, people are afraid to go there because they believe they will no longer find anyone who can take good care of them as before.
Aid agencies say they are ready to resume full operations once security improves, but warn that protecting health workers and maintaining community trust remain critical to bringing the outbreak under control. Joy Karuki-Juma, CGTN.
And still in the DRC, a two-day general strike has brought economic activity to a standstill in the northeastern town of Mambasa. Residents are protesting a resurgence of attacks attributed to Allied Democratic Forces rebels, saying insecurity has left them unable to safely tend to their farms. The shutdown comes as the military intensifies operations in the area. CGTN's Joy Karuki-Juma with that report.
The streets of Mambasa were largely deserted on Monday and Tuesday as businesses, markets and transport services shut down. The strike, called by civil society, was a protest against renewed attacks attributed to the ADF and the continued displacement of residents in DRC's east.
We have closed our businesses to express our anger to the authorities and show them that we are suffering. Every day we lose lives because of the killings. More than 1,000 people have already been killed. It has become difficult to go to the fields even though we depend on agriculture for our livelihood. Today we live in extreme poverty.
Residents say military operations have yet to translate into lasting security, particularly in farming areas.
Everywhere, even in the city, we are afraid. And when you go to the fields, you see many bodies.
Civil society says the shutdown is intended to pressure authorities to take stronger action. Organizers say nearly 100 civilians have been killed since May in attacks attributed to the ADF, a figure that could not be independently verified.
The security situation in the Babila Babombi chiefdom is very worrying. This is what prompted the synergy of civil society, citizen organizations and the population to call for this general strike, observed for 2 days. Afterwards, we will move to civic duty by suspending tax payments. We first ask the government to restore peace. We call on the entire population to respect this call. This does not mean that we have become uncivil citizens. We are simply asking the government to ensure the safety of the population, as this is its responsibility.
The protest comes as the commander of the Army's Ituri operational sector, Major General Bruno Mandevu, visits Mambasa to reinforce military operations against the ADF. The Army says its operations have neutralized several fighters and freed civilians in different locations. But for residents, the priority remains a lasting improvement in security that will allow them to return to their farms and resume normal economic activity. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
The UN is warning that South Sudan still faces significant political and security challenges ahead of elections scheduled for December. Briefing the UN Security Council, UNMISS Chief Anita Kika Gabeho cited ongoing fighting between government and opposition forces, particularly in Jonglei State, as well as tensions in Upper Nile and Unity states. She also raised concerns over communal violence and questioned whether sufficient political trust, civic space, security arrangements, and institutional preparedness can be established in time. Meanwhile, South Sudan's government says the absence of individual leaders cannot indefinitely delay implementation of the peace agreement, stressing that the rule of law must apply to all.
We continue to advocate for dialogue, confidence-building measures, and a reduction in violence. At the same time, persistent insecurity, humanitarian pressures, and political tensions require constant adaptation. To remain fit for purpose, UNMISS is reviewing its structures, activities, staffing profile, and operational posture while strengthening early warning, mobility, and responsiveness to emerging threats.
And staying in South Sudan, the World Food Program is sounding the alarm over the country's deepening humanitarian crisis. It warns that funding is running out and that life-saving food assistance for hundreds of thousands of refugees and internally displaced people could be depleted by the end of September. The UN agency is urging donors to act before the situation deteriorates further. CGTN's Robert Nagila spoke to the WFP's country director in South Sudan, Mutinta Chimuka, and began by asking her about the current situation on the ground.
The food and nutrition situation in South Sudan is dire. We're talking about 10 million people in need of food and nutrition assistance, and that includes 2.2 million children who need much needed malnutrition support. Some of the food insecurity is caused by conflict. As you know, South Sudan has been facing conflict for many years. So this is a big driver of food insecurity, as farmers, the local population, cannot in some places stay and grow their own food for their own livelihood.
Are you confident that you'll be able to get adequate funding for your humanitarian programs?
We have some 650,000 refugees and close to 200,000 IDPs, internally displaced people. We have resources for them only until the end of September. After September, unless we get additional resources, they will have no means of food supply. It's not just the food pipeline that we're concerned about. It's the pipeline for all humanitarian assistance, whether it's in terms of water supply, whether it's health. Those are really things that are a whole complete package that everybody needs. So we're talking about making really very, very difficult choices, but we hope that the world is listening and resources can come.
Could you tell us what some of the challenges are that you're experiencing on the ground at this particular moment?
The most pressing needs, number one, is resources to be able to provide food assistance to these populations we talked about. The second is ensuring that we have access. Already this year, 36 humanitarian workers have been killed while they do their work. So we're appealing to all parties that are involved in the conflict to find a solution to the conflict, because without peace, we will continue to need to feed people, provide the medical assistance, etc.
What's your message to the international community over the humanitarian situation in South Sudan?
We are very grateful to the partners who have supported WFP in South Sudan this year to be able to reach about 2 million people already this year, but we really are appealing to everybody to be able to continue. The World Food Programme knows how to deliver those resources in spite of some of the challenges we face.
At least 100 people died during the mass migrant crossing from Morocco into Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta last week, and that's according to the city government. Spanish authorities say about 72,000 migrants entered Ceuta, and while the majority have already left, some still remain. CGTN Sofia Shimachero reports.
It was one of the largest movements into European Union territory in recent years. Thousands swam across Mediterranean waters in search of a new life. Between 3,000 to 5,000 migrants remain in the Spanish enclave.
We want to work hard. We have young energy and we have capacity, And we want to develop our second country and make progress and boost your economy. This is our intention.
At least 1,100 unaccompanied minors are still in the enclave and will only be returned if they consent to it, according to authorities.
We have to identify and apply the regulation for minors for those who want to stay. And if any minor wants to reunite with their family, it's also a priority. And this measure needs to be applied in their best interest.
However, due to the mass influx, resources in reception centers are under strain.
The reception centers for adult and minor migrants are overwhelmed and have reached a state of collapse, meaning that the influx has developed into a humanitarian emergency of enormous proportions.
Practically everything is required. Resources are running out, and we need, everything. Milk, pastries, bread, and above all, food we can cook, because it is easier for us to cook 20 or 30 pots of food than to prepare bags of provisions.
The border breach has placed the EU on high security alert. In the meantime, Spain has sent military reinforcements to the enclave and began constructing a 500-meter maritime barrier to block sea crossings. Sofia Shimachero, CGTN.
The waters of Kenya's Lake Baringo are rising at an alarming rate, swallowing homes, schools, businesses, and wildlife habitats. What was once a thriving tourism destination is now the site of submerged buildings and displaced communities. Scientists say climate change is driving the surge, while residents are paying the price. CGTN's Enoch Sokolia reports.
A crocodile basks in the morning sun atop what used to be the roof of a conference hall. Just a few years ago, tourists gathered inside this building for meetings and events. Today, only its roof remains visible above the waters of Lake Baringo. The lake in Kenya's Rift Valley has expanded dramatically over the past decade. Scientists attribute the rise to extreme rainfall linked to climate change. Satellite imagery shows the lake has grown by about 70% since 2010. Faith Mpayehi has watched the lake consume her farmland piece by piece. Since 2016, she has moved her fence several times. Today, the fence is underwater and the lake has reached her home.
We have problems because some people have nowhere to relocate to. They've been hit by the floods and their houses have been flooded, but they have nowhere else to go and live.
My sisters have moved away. My older brother has moved, and we are just looking for a way to move because we've been forced into this situation to the point that we are crammed together. At this point, we are coming together so we can help each other and move out one by one, because we don't have any other plot. This was the only plot we had.
For many residents, the lake has not only taken away their livelihoods, it has brought dangerous wildlife right to their doorsteps. Mary Tiren's husband was attacked and killed in 2011 by a hippo while returning home from work at a resort that now lies beneath the lake. A decade later, her 9-year-old son survived a crocodile attack that left a permanent scar on his arm.
Yes, it was when they were drawing water that he was attacked by a crocodile. Now, there were children who were with him, and they're the ones who helped him and struggled with it. And all of them were bitten by that one crocodile. But he's the one who was hurt the most because it carried him off for a bit. A boy his age ran and grabbed him, and this one was crying, telling the other, "Please don't let me go." And the other one jumped in and grabbed him too.
Officers from the Kenya Wildlife Service say the attacks are becoming more common. As the lake expands, crocodiles and hippos are moving closer to human settlements.
We've seen rise of crocodile attacks within the communities, not because there are more crocodiles, but because the lake is near to the local people, where the homesteads. So we had a number of people, I think about 8 to 10 people were bitten, some lost their lives, some we couldn't even get them.
The environmental changes extend beyond human-wildlife conflict. Neighboring Lake Bogoria is also expanding. The distance between the two lakes has narrowed significantly, raising fears of a possible ecological crisis. Lake Baringo is freshwater, while Lake Bogoria is highly alkaline. Scientists warn that continued overflow could alter ecosystems that have existed for centuries.
I think recently when we had rains, Lake Bogoria water would be seen flowing slowly down to Lake Baringo, and that one has been seen. If you measure the soil the content, for example, you will see the salinity content even in plants or other vegetation.
The rising waters have devastated tourism, while community conservancies have been wiped out, forcing wildlife to relocate. Education is also under threat. As the waters continue to rise, residents face an uncertain future, caught between a changing climate, shrinking land, and growing threats from wildlife. What was once a source of life and livelihood is becoming a force that is transforming an entire landscape. Enoxikolia, CGTN.
Time now for our business segment. Here are the headlines. Coming up in business, oil prices rise amid further concerns around the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Leaders at the Infra for Africa Forum signed deals to expand health services and electricity transmission, among others.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Welcome into our business segment. Thanks for staying with us. Global oil prices extended gains on Friday as fresh concerns emerged over the Strait of Hormuz. Markets are reacting to reports of an Iranian proposal to ban vessels it deems hostile from the vital waterway and impose heavy fines on those that violate the rules. Brent crude futures were up 85 cents to $83.34 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures climbed 52 cents to $77 $1.81 cents. Prices had already jumped more than $3 a barrel on Thursday after Iran began reviewing a bill to ban U.S. and Israeli ships from the strait. Senior Iranian officials say Tehran is seeking fees of between 5 and 7% of the price of cargoes from ships using the strait. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump acknowledged on Thursday that armed forces are facing shortages of certain weapons. Trump was responding to questions about a recent Reuters report claiming the U.S. Army has largely depleted its global stockpile of highly accurate long-range missiles during the 5-month war on Iran. He also claimed that the war with Iran will be over soon.
But I think we're doing very well. I'm involved in the negotiation. I think we're doing fine. It could be said. Fortunately, I built up so much during my term. I rebuilt the military and also loaded it up with a lot of stuff. We have certain types of munitions that are very powerful, that we have virtual unlimited supply. We have others where it's a little bit tighter, and we're getting them in on a daily basis. As you know, our defense companies are building more plants right now than at any point in history. They're building plants for the Patriots, for the Tomahawks, for everything. So we're in great shape. But with that being said, we always want more. We have to have more. We have other things maybe come up. Maybe come up and maybe don't come up. Hopefully nothing else does come up. But we're in very good shape. We have literally massive amounts of ammunition.
African leaders and investors have signed agreements in Tanzania's commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, aimed at driving economic growth across the continent. Delegates at the just concluded 2026 Infra for Africa Forum included politicians, business leaders, and development financiers seeking to unlock more investment in the continent's infrastructure. CGTN's Isaac Lucando has more.
Access to dialysis and
a signing ceremony at the 2026 Infra for Africa Forum. 5 cooperation deals were agreed, including 3 between Tanzania and forum organizer Africa 50, a pan-African infrastructure investor and asset manager. The agreements aim to expand health services, strengthen electricity transmission through public-private partnerships, and develop Tanzania's domestic liquefied natural gas distribution network. Host President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan says investing in modern infrastructure is essential to driving economic development in Africa.
That our people measure progress not by the declaration we make, but by the visible outcomes, such as roads, reliable energy, efficient ports and railways, digital connectivity and infrastructure that creates jobs, attracts investment and improve lives.
African countries currently face tighter fiscal conditions, rising debt and declining traditional development finance, making private capital increasingly important.
The African Development Bank Group estimates that Africa requires between 130 billion and 170 billion annually for infrastructure, leaving a financing gap of between 68 billion and 100 billion US dollar every year.
Beyond financing, speakers stressed that successful projects also depend on strong community engagement to reduce delays and build public support.
The need for community engagement and benefit sharing secures the social license to operate the projects that we want to do. It reduces delay. Some of the projects have been delayed because of our inability to manage the social, economic, environmental, and other issues around some of our projects.
Participants also called for smoother commercial regulations across Africa, arguing that better coordination will help countries maximize the benefits of new infrastructure and boost cross-border commerce.
By deploying harmonized trade rules, trade policy, to enable trade amongst countries, if you have a domestic supply of energy and you are able to export, that will happen on the basis of the trade rules.
Over the past decade, Africa 50 says it has grown to 38 shareholders, including 33 African countries, and manages about $1.2 billion in assets. The institution, established by the African Development Bank, says it has supported infrastructure projects worth around $9 billion across the continent. With Africa's population expected to reach about 2.5 billion by 2050, there's a growing need for more roads, expanded access to energy, and enhanced transport infrastructure. Leaders say bringing in more private investment will be key, but the success will ultimately depend on how quickly ideas become real projects that improve people's daily lives. Isaac Lukando, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
And we're not done just yet. We've got your sports segment coming up. Here are the headlines. Coming up in sports, Hervé Renard returns as Côte d'Ivoire's head coach for second stint.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa. So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome into Sport on Africa Live with me, Richard Nta. We begin with continental football, where new Côte d'Ivoire head coach Hervé Renard says he is aware of the huge challenge ahead as he returns to take charge of the national team for a second stint. The West Africans reappointed the Frenchman to the top post after exiting this year's FIFA World Cup in the round of 32. Renard met the Ivorian media on Thursday after taking over from Emers Faye, who led the Elephants to Africa Cup of Nations glory in 2024. Renard returns to the post 11 years on and says he's excited about the challenge ahead.
It's an honor to be able to return with a team that will have ambitious goals, but also of tremendous value. So I thank you all, and we know that the work that lies ahead with these two consecutive Africa Cups of Nations, 2027 and then 2028. It's a huge challenge, as the expectations of Ivorian fans and the